Italy's foreign ministry says the bodies of 4 Italian divers who went missing during a scuba diving accident in the Maldives last week have been found.
Whether they took the correct precautions, whether they had, the necessary planning, that's yet to be determined.
On May 14th, 2026, 5 Italian divers entered the Vaavu Atoll in the Maldives to explore an underwater cave system. What started as a research expedition quickly turned into a death trap. Sadly, all 5 divers never surfaced. And when a team went to recover the bodies, the ocean claimed yet another victim. Unfortunately, there were some clear red flags on this trip. They weren't well equipped for a dive this deep. The tragedy highlights just how quickly a dive can turn into a watery grave. And that was almost the case for diver Xisco Gracia, who in April 2017 explored a cave in Mallorca only to spend 60 hours waiting to be rescued with no oxygen tank, no food, and no way out.
The probability of an accident is very high, but if you have experience, it changes. It has to be an accumulation of various problems. That is what I expect if things go wrong.
We spoke with underwater explorer and expert cave diver Jill Heinerth to get her take on one of the most dangerous professions in the world.
Cave diving, and especially in a rescue scenario, is incredibly stressful because, like I said, the best people to rescue you are already in the cave, and you can't expect the cavalry to show up from halfway around the world in time to save you.
Why did Xisco's diving partner leave him alone with no oxygen tank? What did he hallucinate while he was trapped in the darkness? And what ultimately kept him from giving up? This is the incredible survival story of Xisco Gracia. Xisco Gracia is no stranger to diving expeditions. The 54-year-old teacher and speleologist spent most of his weekends exploring the caves around Mallorca. So on April 15th, 2017, when Xisco entered the Sapiqueta cave system with his friend Guillaume Mascaro, the 2 experienced divers expected things to go according to plan. But as Jill explained, every expedition is a risk, and you need to be prepared for anything.
I literally, before a dive, work through all the things that could go wrong. Like, do I have the right gear? Am I ready, prepared, trained, current in my skills? And in this day, in these conditions, am I capable of self-rescue?
The day started off smoothly. The pair began their dive and swam underwater for an hour, ending up about 3,300 feet from the cave's entrance. They were going to start their exploration of the different chambers the system had to offer. To ensure they could find their way out, the divers placed guidelines as they pushed deeper, a standard practice among cave explorers.
The guideline, that navigational asset, is really important because if you've laid the guideline properly, you can always reach out and wrap your fingers around it in kind of a loose okay signal and just run your hand along it and know that that's going to take you home to a spot where you can safely ascend to the surface, even if you can't see.
The importance of knowing your way out of the cave can be the difference between life and death. With limited air supply and next to no visibility, the last thing any diver wants is to lose their sense of direction. Out of caution, divers are known to stick to the rule of thirds with their air. A third on the way in, a third on the way out, and the last third in case anything goes wrong. They also have multiple light sources, as it's always better to be over-prepared. But it's not just the darkness in caves that divers need to worry about.
Well, I mean, the must-have is adequate gas, so significantly more gas than you think you're going to need.
Even the most prepared divers run into unexpected problems, and how they respond determines if they make it out alive. When Xisco and Guillaume met up after exploring on their own, they unfortunately kicked up a significant amount of silt, making it nearly impossible to see anything around them.
But even in a super clear cave that looks incredibly beautiful, when you swim into that clear environment, your bubbles strike the ceiling and silt rains down on you. But also, if your fin technique, your swimming technique is poor, you can easily kick that up.
As Xisco put it, it was like swimming in chocolate milk. Thankfully, they had their guidelines to help them get out in time. Or did they?
We can only guess some rocks had fallen on it. We spent a precious hour trying to find it by touch, but without success.
Fortunately, Xisco remembered hearing about a chamber with an air pocket nearby and guided Guillaume there. The two divers surfaced. But just because you can get your head above water while in a cave doesn't necessarily mean you're in the clear.
Now, you can never, ever trust an air pocket in the ceiling of a cave, because you could surface, take one breath, and there's not adequate oxygen in that breath to keep you conscious, and you could go lights out. There could be methane gas that's seeped through the geology, and one breath and you're out. And there are lots of cases where that has happened.
The good news for the guys was that the air pocket they found was clean enough to keep them conscious. But CO2 levels remained high, with estimates as high as 5%. To be fair, they were still 130 feet below the ground. For context, the CO2 levels above ground are closer to 0.04%. In other words, the two divers didn't have much time before they started showing signs of carbon dioxide poisoning, which can include trouble breathing and even hallucinations, something Xisco would learn about all too well. Recovery divers believe something similar may have happened in the Maldives. A lack of visibility, along with the cave's depth and difficult navigation, may have led to the tragedy. There's also a theory that a sandbank got stirred up, blocking the divers' view of the exit, which accidentally led them to a dead end. Experts believe this may have caused them to panic, and hyperventilating at these depths can be fatal.
The deeper you go, the more toxic the oxygen becomes, like throwing too much fuel on a campfire, right? So your body can metabolize only so much, and then it starts to become too much gasoline in the tissues, and that oxygen toxicity can result in seizures underwater. And a seizure underwater is a bad thing because you lose your regulator and you drown.
After the divers failed to resurface, they were reported missing, and a search mission began. Later that evening, the body of diving instructor Gianluca Benedetti was recovered near the cave's entrance. The following day, a team of 8 divers, working in pairs, explored chambers 1 and 2, but struggled to navigate chamber 3. Eventually, the group had to stop their search, as poor weather and decompression sickness, also known as the bends, posed a serious risk.
If we do a deep dive, like the deeper we go and the longer we go, we start to accrue a penalty that we call decompression. Because our body is storing inert gases that are not useful. I mean, we use oxygen to fuel our body, but nitrogen, or for deeper dives, helium, gets stored into our tissues, much like gas is stored in a soda pop bottle. Now, if you want to depressurize a soda pop bottle, you just very carefully open the cap and you don't shake it up.
In extreme cases, decompression sickness can lead to paralysis or death. A local law prohibits tourists from diving deeper than 100 feet. But these divers went nearly 200 feet deep after obtaining a special permit. The permit allowed them to dive 165 feet deep. Now guys, we can't say for sure why they ended up as deep as they did. One thing that was uncovered was that the Italian divers were using recreational diving gear, not the technical kind needed for a complex cave dive.
If you're using recreational equipment, then it starts becoming dangerous if you go too deep, because often you'll dive with one single cylinder, which may not give you enough breathing gas, and it allows you no redundancy, no bailout if that system fails.
So basically anything that could go wrong, you've got to have at least 2 or 3 backups in order to manage an incident.
For Xisco and Guillaume, they only had enough air for one of them to resurface and call for help. The other would have to wait patiently in an air pocket with CO2 levels rising with each breath.
We decided I would stay and Guillaume would go for help. He was skinnier than me and needed less air for breathing. I was also more experienced at breathing cave air, which has higher carbon dioxide levels.
Now, before you think his friend was just being selfish, the reality was simple. Either they both die, or one of them takes a chance and tries to get help.
I think they made a good choice where they realized 2 of us are not going to make it out of here. So get one into a safe position and get the other one out if you can. And that's a smart decision.
Guillaume and Xisco planned a longer alternative exit route on a map. They had already mapped out the cave from many dives before. Yet, without a guideline, there was a high chance of getting lost. He needed all the oxygen he could get. Xisco bravely handed Guillaume his oxygen tanks for the journey. And now, the danger felt frighteningly real. While Guillaume started to swim back and his flashlight faded away, all Xisco could do was wait and try to keep calm, knowing the odds weren't in his favor.
Most rescues in caves are to retrieve a deceased person. It's uncommon to save a person alive. We do not have the technology today to conduct rescues in caves with that level of difficulty.
He found a large, flat, rocky area where he could sit and wait. But with 2 of his 3 flashlights no longer working, and the 3rd running low on batteries, he had no choice but to remain in complete darkness. Except when he needed to drink water or relieve himself. If anything, this proves the importance of being overly prepared. Hoping for the best, but always being ready for the worst.
You have to be self-sufficient, and you have to be in the mindset that you can be self-sufficient.
I was hopeful during the first 7 or 8 hours, as I thought Guillaume would make it out. As time passed, though, I started to lose hope. I thought, Guillaume has got lost and died, and no one knows I am down here.
Sometimes when you're put in very stressful situations, your mind can play tricks on you.
But after so long breathing in air so charged with CO2, I sometimes saw things, like lights or bubbles, and thought they had come to rescue me. And when they did not arrive, I was discouraged.
And as you raise the carbon dioxide, you start to feel a little short of breath, and you actually breathe more. So it becomes this terrible feedback loop.
High levels of CO2 in your blood can lead to a condition called hypercapnia. In short, your blood becomes more acidic and affects your brain's chemistry, which can lead to hallucinations. On top of the risk of CO2 poisoning, Xisco also feared he could die from hypothermia or starvation, something he wasn't going to let happen. Then, he heard something above him. A rescue team was trying to drill down to Xisco to get him fresh air, food, and water. That meant Guillaume had made it out. Help was coming. Things were looking good until the noises stopped. The plan had failed. Rescuers now had to figure out another way to get him out. Their first idea was to bring him back the same way he had come in, but with such poor visibility in the cave, that option was too dangerous. At this point, Xisco had come to terms with the fact that if he had to die in this cave, he'd take matters into his own hands.
I decided to swim across to where I left my gear and get a knife. I wanted to have it as a last resort if I needed to choose whether to die quickly or slowly.
Then he thought about his children. What would happen to them without their father? Xisco's mind started whirling. But suddenly, he saw a glowing light in the distance. Was this the end?
I looked and saw a diver's light that seemed to be getting brighter and brighter. I thought it was another hallucination, but then I realized it was real, and I saw a helmet emerging.
It was Xisco's friend, Bernat Clamore, who was the first to reach him, along with diver John Freddy. By now, he had been stuck in the cave for 2 days, nearly 3,000 feet from the entrance. Although there was excitement on both ends that Xisco was found alive, there was no guarantee that he or the rescue divers would survive the journey back. Between the tight crevices they had to navigate through, the potential of silt being kicked up once again, and Xisco's weakened state, there was no room for error. The same could be said for the recovery mission in the Maldives. On the second day of searching for the missing Italians, the 8 divers returned to the water to continue their mission, but only 7 resurfaced.
We have an update now on that urgent and dangerous effort underway to recover the bodies of 4 divers who perished in a deep system of underwater caves in the Maldives. The group went missing and their bodies eventually were located by a robotic camera, but the recovery operation itself has now turned deadly.
The body of Sergeant Major Mohammed Mahoudi, a Maldivian military diver, was found unconscious underwater. He was rushed to the hospital, but died because of decompression sickness. At this point, the recovery mission for the remaining bodies was called off.
Well, with a diver, we just have to very slowly come back to the surface step by step in a series of decompression stops. And those decompression stops can be very lengthy for a long or deep dive. I mean, my longest decompression portion of a dive was 17 hours of decompression to get back to the surface at a point where my body was now reacclimated to surface pressure.
Did you hear that? 17 hours. To avoid the risk of decompression sickness, it was determined that Xisco would need to slowly make his way back to the surface over the span of 8 hours. On April 17th, 2017, after spending almost 60 hours inside the cave that nearly killed him, Xisco Gracia came back to ground level. But his story doesn't end there. The cave was no longer a threat, and as happy as he was to see his friend Guillaume, other factors were still putting his life in danger.
It hit me physically as soon as I left the water. My temperature was 32 degrees Celsius, so I was at risk of hypothermia. I was given pure oxygen to breathe overnight.
The pure oxygen was vital for flushing out the remaining CO2 in Xisco's system and for warming his body while hospitalized. Fortunately, he didn't suffer any permanent injuries. In fact, he returned to exploring the same cave system just a month after the ordeal.
That's what drives us as explorers. So cave explorers are going to places that no human has ever been before. We don't know what we're going to see when we walk in the doorway, essentially. And that is actually what drives us. That is a big part of the thrill, is, bringing back the data from these places, or just having the opportunity literally to walk on the moon, in essence.
In October 2022, Xisco also lent his expertise to help rescue a friend who was exploring the Sa Gelda cave. Talk about paying it back. But as we know, cave rescues don't always have a happy ending. In the Maldives, a specialized team of Finnish divers located the other 4 bodies in a dead-end section of the cave, furthest from the entrance. Over the course of a few days, all of their bodies were extracted. Our condolences go out to the families and friends of the victims. Now, as you can see, we had 2 very similar situations with 2 very different outcomes. The sad reality is that cave rescue operations are often turned into recovery missions. And the reason Xisco Gracia survived wasn't pure luck. It was his preparedness, training, and logical thinking to send his friend to get help that led to his survival. But for a Thai soccer team and their assistant coach, there was no time to prepare when they got stuck in a flooded cave. And check out our video on their unbelievable rescue, where Jill also shared her insights on what they did right and what likely led to the successful rescue mission. We'll see you next time in another episode of How to Survive.